quarantine period. We closed our borders early when some determined that they would not. And as a consequence of these early measures, the effectiveness of our public education program, St. Kitts and Nevis, has become a model of a state that has very successfully managed COVID-19. In this regard, the BBC and Sky News have basically found the time to track me down and to get a perspective regarding the success of St. Kitts and Nevis and our people in this fight with the COVID-19. We in St. Kitts and Nevis have done what some countries have been unable to do. That is to put in place a very substantial stimulus package directed at those who have been hit hardest by COVID-19 pandemic. And we have launched an unprecedented $120 million stimulus package. A substantial portion of it, $10 million, has been directed to agriculture. And I'm happy that the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Health, the Honorable Jean Hamilton, is here and could relate, and he has already begun to do so in his initial remarks about the successes so far. For my own part, I was happy last week, I think it was, to have visited an area in Utley's where we have earmarked some 15 acres of land to be put into meeting our food security needs. I want to thank the Director of Agriculture, Mr. Melvin James, who took time to give me a tour of that area. I have gone back since then on the weekend and have noticed that the clearing of the land has started in earnest. So I know that the stimulus is now being put to good use, and our country will emerge from this pandemic stronger and safer. We have been able to respond in an unprecedented way, and in a way unparalleled by any other country in the OCS, because we have set aside, and we were able, with fortune, with management, to help us to put aside funds for the rainy day. We took the fiscal discipline very seriously, and very early in our 10 years of government, we took the decision to pay off the $117 million left behind in debt to the IMF. We did that as an indicator to ourselves that never again should our country be so poorly managed that we need to go a-begging, and as a consequence of it, to surrender our prerogative, sovereign prerogative over national decision-making to a foreign entity. We were happy that very early in our tenure, we were able to pay off $200 million to redeem lands in Cairn, to redeem lands in Lodge Utley's, to redeem land in Lambert's estate, and half the tree, to redeem lands in Sandy Point, and those lands are now part and parcel of the lands that are being made available for residential, commercial, industrial purposes. 135 acres of such lands have now been identified for support for agriculture. So, as a result of our actions, the ordinary people and the farming community is clearly better off. Yes, we established this substantial stimulus package to support our people, and our package was much bigger than all others in the region. region, when we were given a salary support of $1,000 per month, some countries could only afford $300, some could only afford $600, and some with more natural resources could only afford $603 equivalent. So we are grateful that we have been able to do more for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Yes, this economic management and our subsequent response to COVID-19 has meant that we now face a stronger and safer future, and we must do all in our power to preserve it. I want to remind us that although we have been managing relatively well and we are making significant strides forward, we cannot take our situation for granted. One mistake and the second tide, the second surge, could be more deadly than the first. And Minister Hamilton made reference to what happened way back in 1918 with the Spanish flu. It was the second wave, when people began too early to rejoice, when people thought that it was all over. By engaging in frivolous action, like we saw on Monday last, by those who should know better, leading their followers in irresponsible action, we could, as it were, risk all the gains that we have made so far. So I want to remind the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, we still have to continue to persevere. We still have to continue to exercise caution. We still have to continue to take seriously the advice that have been provided to us by the health experts, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but at PAHO and the WHO and at CAFA. The advice has been consistent. We remind our people of the need for hand hygiene, and clearly use of soap and water is critically important. And of course, alcohol-based solution would also help. We want to remind people to show the relevant etiquette in relation to their cough and sneezing, and of course always show respect, concern, and distance in relation to others. Distance is indeed a new form of love, so we must in fact abide by the 6 feet distance, especially when we are engaging persons. We want people to avoid touching their faces, their eyes, their nose and mouth to prevent the virus from entering their body. And of course, we say to all, if you are feeling unwell, stay home, follow all instructions provided by your local health experts. I want to say to the country that we will continue to provide responsible and serious leadership, because these difficult and challenging times require serious leadership. Yes, 5 years, and it is what you will get in the future from a team unity government. You know in your heart that team unity is the clear choice, indeed the only choice now, to lead this country to the safe harbor after COVID-19. We have been doing a good job, and I encourage our citizens and residents to let that good work continue. Our stronger and safer future would be put at risk if we were to go back to that which we rejected. If we are not careful, the gains that we have made in fiscal management, which have allowed us to have the best stimulus package being made available, will of course all be risked. And we will find ourselves again into the IMF debt trap, and we will be made vulnerable. The last time we went to the IMF, we experienced one of the highest introductory rate of VAT. High electricity. Electricity bills went up by 85%, and water bills went up by 600%. Because of our superlative fiscal management, even in the face of COVID, and as part of our response to our people, especially the poor, our citizens and residents need not worry about water bills for the month of May, April, May, and June. And we have also deferred electricity bills for the said. Yes, the future will be bright and safer with the Team Unity administration. We have come too far to throw away our progress. We have shown as a government that when times are tough, our Team Unity government will be with the people no matter what. So let us stick together. Let us work together, and let us take recognition that the times are serious, and we have to redeem the times by continuing to act responsibly and wisely. Team Unity is committed to take the sensible action that will advance St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to say thank you to all the citizens and residents of our country who have understood the seriousness of the time, who by their constructive actions and behavior have helped us to advance in relation to our fight against this pandemic. I want to thank all those who have been working selflessly, competently, and as strong patriots in this war against COVID-19. And I am confident that St. Kitts and Nevis under a Team Unity administration will rise stronger and better after COVID-19. So to you, my fellow citizens and residents, I say a hearty thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I want now to turn to our colleague in Nevis, Senior Minister Mr. Vance Gilby, who had been interrupted earlier. Vance?
Thank you very much, Minister Hamilton, and you know that I am struggling to remain online, but clearly the technology let us down somewhat. So I think we are back together now, and I want to, as it were, begin where at the beginning of my own presentation, and want to agree with you and the Prime Minister that we have so much to be thankful for. We need to thank God for sustaining us, for protecting us during this very serious pandemic, one which we felt and which the world over has seen to be really disruptive, not just of people's health, but of the economy, which of all of our countries. And we in St. Kitts and Nevis clearly are not set apart except by our own willingness and the plans which we have had to put in place the kind of strategy to deal with this pandemic, which clearly, as the Prime Minister said, is a war against a silent, unseen enemy. And I want to say that the atmosphere of peace in which we have existed in the last year or so has helped in no small measure with our people to make the adjustment and to cope with dealing with this pandemic. I want, as I look at the work which Social Security is doing to thank the chairman, Mr. Walters, and his members of the board, the CEO, Mr. Maynard, the Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Johnson, and the PR staff and all the line staff of Social Security for all of the work which they have done to ensure that the people who have suffered, the employees who have been temporarily laid off, those self-employed persons who now have little or no income, they can get an income to help tide them over during the next 3 months under the stimulus package, of which Social Security is contributing some $15 million. I want also to thank the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Labor and the Acting Labor Commissioner and the staff, all the staff at the Department of Labor, who have been doing sterling work to ensure that we process the applications which have come. And I want to say the numbers of applications which we think we will receive would be anything near to 6,000 applications. So far, Social Security has processed near to 3,000 of those and made payments to the accounts or given checks to persons who have made claims. Now, I want to take us back a little bit and to how the Ministry of Labor and Social Security responded when we recognized in early March that we were, in fact, going to be seriously affected by COVID-19. And what we did then was we summoned a meeting early with the board members, the chair and the CEO, to ensure that they respond to the demands of the government to be part of the stimulus which the government would have had to put in place because of the definite impact on the economy and the loss or the temporary loss of employment of our workers, especially the workers in the lower wage earning bracket, those in tourism, those in the restaurants, those in bars and retail shops and so on. They would be the ones who would be most affected. And we are aware that because of their lower earning capacity, that they would certainly be affected and affected very quickly by this pandemic as the economy had to close down, had to slow down so that we could deal with the threat of the pandemic to the health of the people of our country and to find a strategy to ensure that we did not succumb or that we were able to keep at bay the pandemic, the infection rate, so that our people could remain healthy and withstand this unprecedented attack on the human body. On the 17th of March, I met with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce representative of the Manufacturers Association, the Trades and Labor Union, the Teachers Union. We had also in that meeting the Chief Personnel Officer of the government and the financial representative of the Ministry of Finance, so that we could look in a holistic way at how the impact of COVID-19 would affect the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We were able to look at the way in which the government, or we will have to respond, and with the support of our tripartite partners, we're able to look at one, how do we deal with those persons who would be laid off? We had already had conversations with a number of the employers whose businesses would be affected, the Marriott, the Park Hyatt, the Carambola, and other such establishments in St. Kitts and in Nevis. We alerted the Labor Department to have similar discussions here with the hoteliers and the other allied businesses which would be affected. And our strategy was that those persons who would have to be temporarily laid off, that Social Security would provide for them an income support of $1,000 per month for 3 months in the first instance. And I say the first instance because we are not at all certain and cannot be certain at this stage as to how long this pandemic would be affecting St. Kitts and Nevis or the whole world as a matter of fact. We have seen the experts, the scientists, the medical officers in the developed countries struggling to come to grips with what is happening in their countries. We have seen countries locked down for 4 weeks or more, and then in this week seeking to reopen their economies only to have concerns raised by the World Health Organization, WHO, that to open up too quickly without persons taking the necessary precautions could lead to a second wave of infection, which could be worse than the first. And here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we are conscious of that, and we are certainly guided by the Chief Medical Officer and her staff, the Medical Chief of Staff at the hospital, Dr. Wilkinson, and all of the medical officers who are part of the team seeking to give to the government as we seek to deal with the way in which we manage the effect of this pandemic, this virus, which has caused so much dislocation here in St. Kitts and Nevis and elsewhere in the region. I said on the 17th of March, we looked at how do workers. And our thing was those workers who would have had to be laid off because they would Social Security will provide some income assistance to tide them over during this pandemic, during their time of being without work. So, in discussion with the Board of Social Security and the Chief Technical Officer at Social Security, it was decided that $15 million will be put aside to form a COVID-19 over during this pandemic, during their time of being without work. So, in discussion with the Board of Social Security, will be put aside to form a COVID-19 mitigation fund. Substantial support from Social Security, and we have looked at how this would affect the stability of the Social Security Fund, and we are satisfied that making $15 million available for this, I think, is a very substantial support from Social Security, and we have looked at how this would affect the stability of the Social Security Fund, and we are satisfied that making $15 million available for this stimulus package would not significantly impair our Social Security Fund. As a matter of fact, we are satisfied that this money would come from the reserves, and therefore we still have significant reserves, Social Security being a very strong fund of some $1.3 million in assets and reserves, which will tide us over for some time yet into the future. Now, in looking at how we have been dealing with the process, it has been a very cumbersome process. We had hoped that the employers would have submitted to the Department of Labor all the names of all the persons to be affected, and then the Department of Labor would have processed all of the forms. But we recognized that this was a simplified form, and that there were other things which we could not initially predict. And we then went to the point where we were asking persons affected to apply online, complete online, submit them to the Department of Labor, which would then ensure that all of the verification in terms of their justification for the benefit were met, and then those will be forwarded to the Social Security for payment. We also recognize that Security would have to make its own adjustment, because we recognize, and we certainly were looking at the possibility of persons seeking to double dip and create fraud to benefit from the fund. And I have been advised by the director, the CEO, that they have put in place a very strong compliance and audit arrangement to ensure that only those persons who should benefit from the COVID-19 fund income assistance program, that only they benefit. And this includes, as I said, employees who have been temporarily laid off, those persons who have had reduced hours and therefore have some income, and also all of the persons who are self-employed and registered with the Social Security. They are the ones who will be the prime beneficiary, who will be the beneficiaries of this COVID-19 income assistance program. Now, we've had questions raised where people have said that they fear that when self-employed persons, that when they start to, if they start to work before the 3-month period is up, that their income assistance will stop. I want to say to you that that is not the case. And I verified and reminded the director and the board reps about this, and we certainly will continue to make this payment for the period April, May, those 3 months in the first instance. And if one returns to work and is earning significantly more than the $1,000, then we would then reconsider what we do in those instances. Now, I want also to look at the pensioners, those persons who are receiving a pension from Social Security and who became self-employed and who now do not have income which is $1,000 or more. I want to say as well that the Social Security, we are agreeing that you will get the difference between what your pension is, and if it is certainly less than the $1,000, Social Security will top you up with the difference so that you get $1,000 to help you to maintain near ordinary standard of living for this period. We know it is not going to be up to the level at which you've been accustomed, because if one were getting to just the minimum wage, which would be about $1,400 a month, clearly the $1,000 falls short of that. But I believe that the support from social, and I just want to appeal to all of our employees, all who are receiving the benefit from the income assistance, that you use that income assistance wisely and recognize that it is a temporary arrangement and that you have a responsibility to manage that income as efficiently and as properly as possible. Now, I need to look at one other area, and that is to say to you that up to today, when I spoke to the CEO, Director of Security, he advised me that approximately 3,000 persons had been paid. He received also today from the Department of Labor, where the staff are processing, some in the offices, some at home, some at the ministry, processing that they processed some 500 applications today, which were submitted this afternoon to the Social Security for payment. And I can assure, based on my discussion with the Director and CEO of Social Security, that all the payments will continue to be made tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. And we will then again, as we get new applications, we will continue to pay those, and then we will begin the cycle over again to make sure that you get payment for April, payment for May, payment for June, as we had as announced by the Prime Minister and supported by the Cabinet Team Unity Government, that we will ensure that you get that stimulus from Social Security for those 3 months. I am as well that as we get near to the end and we are looking at the reopening of the economy, if it were done, and we still see that there are persons in need, that the Social Security Fund will continue to provide for those who are in need. Now, we need also that our people will be honest in dealing with their claims. Already we have concerns from Social Security, which says that there are persons who are making more than one application to doubly apply. We also have persons who were not in the criteria which was established, that is, temporarily laid off, working but with reduced hours, and self-employed, registered with the Social Security. There are persons who may not have been working at all. What we are saying, those persons who fall into that category, as you heard from the Prime Minister, they are asked to get or to apply to the Poverty Alleviation Program or to the Social Services Assistance Program for any benefits which you need, and your assessment will be done there as well. So I want to thank you very much for allowing me to explain that. If there are questions, we'll be willing to respond to those questions. But finally, I just want to say to all employees, those who are now still working, that there are protocols which will demand that changes be made, which will affect the conditions of your work. There will be changes in the work itself. There will be changes in the hours which you are given and the schedules which you are given to allow you to go into work. And if you have to work at home, there certainly will be conditions which will apply to that. So we will all have to make some sacrifice. I know we would all like to have more, but I feel that the government, through Social Security and through its Poverty Alleviation Program and its Social Services Assistance Program, that the government has made very generous or a generous response to this emergency. And we would want all of our people to recognize that we are all in this together, and they have to make some sacrifice so that you can help yourselves and help the country to survive this pandemic. We do not know how long it will last. We do not know when the tourism industry will open up again. We do not know when we will have regular flights to get people coming from the US or from Europe or from anywhere for that matter. And therefore, we have to be cautious. We have to be prudent in how we manage this pandemic and the stimulus package which the government has made. And Social Security clearly is going to be very meticulous. Although I can assure you, there's no need to panic. There's no need to be afraid, because Social Security will make sure that if you make an application, you make a claim, and you deserve, you will receive your payment. Thank you very much for allowing me, Prime Minister and Chair, Minister Hamilton.
Thank you, Senior Minister, the Honorable Vance Amory, for your leadership in leading the charge at Social Security, responding to those thousands of persons who have been bombarding the institution with claims, rightly so, as long as you are making a just claim. So I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. Amory. I believe the country has seen leadership, the team unity leadership in action. The Prime Minister, through his towering leadership of this nation, which is the envy of some of our colleagues in the region, who are always seeking advice as to how we are doing it. There is no gap in the leadership by the Honorable Prime Minister. I think you recognize that we began first by allowing the technical persons, especially those experts, science and medicine, to carve or craft the way in the early stages, and then the political leadership took the responsibility to make the decisions which are political. Of course, we have seen leadership from the other members of the team. For example, we have seen that the Deputy Prime Minister has shown such leadership in dealing with our students who are returning from abroad, and other matters to do with the children at school. But certainly, those who are at university in Jamaica and those who were coming home, we saw the leadership of the Deputy Prime Minister. We have seen the towering leadership of the Honourable Wendy Phipps, dealing with the matters to do with health and carrying on with the work of the COVID task force. We have seen, of course, the leadership of the Minister of Agriculture now kicking into gear, because food now becomes the most important feature of this entire program as we head towards the third and fourth and fifth and sixth months as we move ahead. We will go into questions in a moment. Let me remind you that the numbers to call are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and 1-239-645-4500. I understand that there are 3 virtual calls which we'll take now, but continuing, we will ask you to frame your questions, speak clearly, be respectful, and we will provide answers to every question that you provide, that you submit to us. And indeed, our responses, I hope, will be very helpful and informative. So let's go to the virtual calls.
Good night, leadership panel. Now, PM, first, let me thank you for doing such a wonderful job in keeping us safe here in St. Kitts and Nevis. I see more persons are recovering, which means that the plan you have put in place are working. Now, there's a task force in place. Can you give me an update on the progress and how this is going? Also, what about persons who do not fall in the threshold of the Social Security? Do you have anything in place for future reference? Now to Mr. Hamilton, Honorable Hamilton. How is the monkey problem coming along in St. Kitts, seeing though this is one of the major problems affecting farmers, and we are trying to encourage more farmers, and I want to know how will this help. Also, is there any plan for the fishers and the farmers to spend more time out during lockdown and partial curfew days? Next question. How soon can the farmers who were affected by the disease, which many have lost their cows and sheep, can they see some relief through the development bank? And finally, Mr. Amri, is it true that there is some $1.6 billion in reserve to help the Social Security Relief Fund? What is the reason why Social Security is working so closely with the Labor Department? I mean, we all see that it was here that Social Security are working very closely. So I would like to know what is the reason for this. I thank you.
Good evening, Prime Minister and the entire team. I would like to thank you all for all your hard work and keeping us informed each and every day. My question this evening is to the Prime Minister. How do you see the tourism and service industry functioning once we get back to business? What are some of the things that we might have to change or adapt in order to welcome back visitors but still maintain safety for our people?
Honorable Prime Minister, first of all, I would like to thank you for the work you and your administration has been doing during this COVID-19 pandemic and for the stimulus package that has been put in place to assist the nation. The reason I am reaching out is because I did not remember seeing a specific mention to this area in the stimulus package. So my question is, to enable business continuity for small businesses, especially in the retail market, would there be, or is it being considered, the possibility of a temporary suspension or reduction on the custom tariffs on goods and products imported by licensed small businesses who are in good standing but are now currently struggling to stay afloat at this moment during this COVID-19 pandemic, but whose imports are not under the exemption offered for food and pharmaceutical products?
We will go to the lines.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister and the Cabinet.
Yes, you're online.
Mr. Prime Minister, when you all come together and you all set up team unity and you had your manifesto, you never had the whooping in your manifesto. You never had this disease what come down so suddenly on us. You never had the bringing home the children that from Jamaica. You never had the people them in the state that have been studying and around the world, which are $1,000 for them. These are the burdens that come down on you. But just because of your good leadership and your good workmanship with you and your cabinet and the members of government, you were fortunate enough to assist everybody. But what I want to say to you, Mr. Prime Minister, do not lose track. Continue to do the best work you could do until the election come out, and you will go right back there, you and your team. Don't be subtracted by them. You see what happened yesterday? But somebody should bear the penalty for that. Because if you get permission to go by a grave, or you get permission to go by a park to drop out something, you had no call in the street with your fans and them and you comrades and them dancing up and down in the street. Somebody needs to be punished for that. Because the smaller man who is wearing a kerchief round him out and he forget the kerchief for him, he being punished for that, you know, and they leave on the curfew and go out there and do a lot of wrong things yesterday and think they're doing something to intimidate somebody. But you just keep the faith. God is with you and your cabinet, and you're going to be blessed until eternity. God bless you all. Good night, sir.
Thank you, Rock.
We have more calls? No?
have a caller on the air?
We do not have...
Greetings.
Yes, caller.
Good night.
Yes, greetings. Okay, we want to make a sound about a matter that we can, concerning our finances that we can pursue within the scheme of things. But before we make a sound, we notice the whole politics thing, And, we don't say, dash it away. So, we still see it show its ugly head and it's unfortunate and like we listened to Brother Rock there a while ago. We must say, don't get sidetracked, but at the same time, we must say, somebody who get punished. And the only punishment we see there is how the policeman handle the matter, which is non-political. When they say, well, who, well, the thing or whatever, and somebody, if the police decide to pursue it, it is all and sundry who the claim say broke the law. So we have to take the politics out there together and let you take on that, a sidetrack that, But we don't need that, no. When we come to talk about, it is an opportune time, we pursue farming agriculture. It is an opportune time to also, because it not change within the scheme of things in the world, even with this pandemic, the cannabis industry. There is an abundance of money inside of it, and it is good, it is timely to pursue that as we pursue the other form of agriculture, food. So please put that on the table, and once again, best wishes to everyone. Blessed love.
Do we have any other callers? No. Okay, so if we do not... If the callers, let us Prime Minister respond to questions posed by the virtual callers as well as those who called online a while ago. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Hamilton. I want to start with the last caller, since that is more fresh in memory. The development of the cannabis industry certainly is part of the future of St. Kitts and Nevis as we try to build out new sector for engagement by our people. And we are this subsidy in a position to advance this particular industry with a focus and medical aspect of the tourism industry contributing to health and the cannabis industry contributing to the health and wellness of our people. Several callers made reference to the irresponsible behavior we had yesterday with members of opposition engaging in dancing in the street. This conduct clearly was highly irresponsible and shows a complete lack of understanding of the seriousness of the danger. And in fact, that behavior by leaders could encourage followers to engage in even more dangerous behaviors, which could result in a worsening of the situation and force more drastic actions to be taken to control and contain the virus. What I would want to say is that we hope such actions would never be repeated, and we hope that all those who participated in that show of recklessness would reconsider their ways and would refrain from such danger to themselves, danger that they may transmit the virus to others in their families, in their communities, and indeed worsen what has been so far a very successful response of St. Kitts and Nevis in containing the virus. For our part, we take the seriousness of the matter under consideration, and we promise that the team unity government will always act responsibly and indeed indeed, this is not a time for frolic, this is not a time for party. This is a time for persons to, as it were, get on their knees, thank God that their lives have been spared, abiding by the relevant protocols that will continue to keep them, their families, etc. safe. I want to thank RAC for calling in and to, as it were, draw attention to the fact that the government continues to perform. We have fulfilled some of the key promises that we would have made in our manifesto, but he had drawn reference to the fact that even things that we had not committed to do and were not envisaged in the manifesto and provided for are being done. For example, our successful response to the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, in which we have been able to provide support for a record number of persons across all geographical boundaries of St. Kitts and Nevis and across all income levels. We are happy to have been able to help persons restore some sense of balance and calm to their lives and to put their homes in a more resilient position today than it would have been. And for the first time in history, such a comprehensive response to hurricanes had been undertaken. Hitherto in the past, before the coming of this administration, you suffered hurricane damage, you were basically on your own. Few persons were even so fortunate as to get a piece of tarpaulin. The support that we have been given to the students overseas who are suffering difficulties, that of course is a commendable effort. We indicated last time we were on this program that over 83 students were paid. We have indicated that we have paid over $200,000 to bring home our students from Jamaica. Equally, the government has to undertake the costs of keeping them in quarantine for a period of at least 14 days. Interestingly, today we were on a CARICOM heads of government meeting. I was supported by businesses. We have provided support, committed support of $5 million to the Development Bank to assist small businesses. We will get an update on how this is targeted. We have also asked the Financial Secretary and her team to do an evaluation of some recommendations that had come in ways in which we might be able to provide some additional relief to the small business community. So this is a matter under advisement, and we shall follow up with the Financial Secretary with respect to this particular matter. So at our next occasion, we should be in a better position to address this. The question of the tourism market and the tourism product, it's one that is receiving significant attention. We know that once the world is ready to engage,
You're in tune to 1FM 98.9, and we apologize for the constant dropouts, but here at 1FM 98.9 studios, we can do nothing about it because that seems to be emanating from wherever the broadcast is taking place. So again, our humble apologies. And again, we take you back to the live broadcasting of Leadership Matters.
If we are going to be in a position anytime soon to engage the rest of the world by year. So the redesigning, the reconceptualizing of the tourism products for St. Kitts and Nevis and the rest of the world, they are taking place. Our tourism authority is at work with that. We have had some draft proposals, and certainly at one of our editions, we will have the head of our tourism authority and our tourism minister back again to provide further advice and update with respect to that. But across the tourism sector, again, they are going to be a new way of doing business, and so a lot of effort will be put between now and the opening of the industry in retraining, guiding, and helping people to come to grips with the new imperatives. The products are certainly going to have some changes. We are going to see, for example, greater attention being paid to our touristic sites, our sites of high interest, and how we are going to cater for issues of health and safety around them. We are going to see new attractions being added to the list, to areas in which the tourists can go and enjoy us to do so in a health-conscious way. Health is going to be a predominant issue in the context of the COVID-19, post-COVID-19 tourism relationships, and a lot of conversations are going into fleshing out what the new product would look like and what the new traveler would expect. And this is going to impact all layers, every areas. Even the airlines will have to have new operating standards. There are going to be more searches, more tests that are going to be taking place with respect to passengers. Persons perhaps are going to have to get certificates if they are coming from known destinations to indicate that they are COVID-free. So a lot of thoughts are going into the process. Finalization of these discussions is not yet evident, and so when those things are finalized, we will bring more information to the public with respect to those matters. I think those were the questions that were put to me, and I've attempted to give some answers to the other matters I think relate to the Social Security. For Senior Minister Vance Emery, why is it working with the Labor Department so closely? And the matter of reserves for the stimulus package response to those who have been disadvantaged. The other matters, the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, you may want to deal with those that relate to agriculture. Safe to acknowledge that we are having a very successful recovery, and we want more cases to occur. As it stands, I think we have 12, if I'm not mistaken, out of the 15 cases. Let me just check the schedule. It says 12 persons have recovered out of 15. So this is a significant development. This is about maybe 80% of those who have been affected are for now fully recovered, and we thank God for his mercy on these people and wish them and their families continuing good health.
Yes, thank you, Prime Minister. Let us turn to the Senior Minister Vance Emery to respond to about the Social Security question, working with the Labour Department so closely.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the question, caller. I think it's necessary that the Social Security and the Ministry of Labour and Department of Labour work closely, because both parts of my ministry's responsibility work and deal with the people's welfare, as it were. We are concerned about the conditions under which people work, their wages, and their health and safety at work. The Social Security provides for their assistance, social protection, but the two go together. Now, in this COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to the dislocation of so many persons in the workplace, it was absolutely necessary that the Department of Labor sort of lead the charge to ensure that those persons who were affected in terms of being temporarily laid off or would receive reduced hours, we know we would get the information from the employers. The employers will send that information to us. In the normal course of things, that is what happens. And then Department of Labor processes the application based on the information from the employers, and then submit to Social Security for the disbursement. I think it made it easier for us to do the processing applications, and Social Security then verify, double-check to ensure that the approval which was given, submitted from the Department of Labor, was in fact correct, and that the payment was was approved and was really for the person to benefit. Now, as I said, we had cases where persons were in claims, and I just look at some of the issues which we had. Persons with part-time jobs or 2 jobs, whereby one job was affected, but they were earning more than the $1,000 from the other job. This also included government employees who were not qualified for this income assistance. And then you have another areas, self-employed persons who registered since the COVID relief payment had to be looked at and had to be assessed for their payment. We had also duplication of application forms. So there had to be that close cooperation between the Department of Labor and the Social Security. And the list goes on in terms of why we needed to work closely. The 2 departments, Social Security and Ministry of Labor and Department of Labor, had to work closely to ensure that we make the best of this opportunity to ensure that those persons who were in need of the support, that they got it and that there was no fraudulent activity. Now, there was a question in respect of $1.3 billion at Social Security. Now, that fund is not the fund being utilized. The fund being utilized is an investment fund which has generated some revenue for Social Security, a special fund which Social Security is using for the payment of the COVID-19 fund. The $1.3 billion which Social Security has as part of its assets and reserves is for the longevity, the stability of the fund, to ensure that persons who contribute, these are the contributors' funds. Certainly we have some investment funds, but these are the funds of contributors which are held in trust by Social Security to ensure that when people retire, they get their benefits. If people fall sick, they get their sick benefit. If a lady goes for maternity leave, there is that payment for them, and we do not have any other source but the reserves, the funds, the contributors' funds, which are there for the Social Security to utilize. And that is why I said, even as we've made $15 million available, that $15 million comes from a special fund which was earmarked for other arrangements but had not to be utilized for the COVID-19 assistance fund. So we are making sure that we do not do anything to weaken the strength of the Social Security fund, because this has to last and people will depend on it for their pension, for their sick benefit and other things which are mandated by law, and which their contributions to the fund entitles them to receive when the time is right. I wanted to just look at one other matter, I think, and that is maybe, I know Minister Hamilton, you will look at it, but I think the monkey problem in Nevis is also a very serious problem. And I'm sure the 2 ministries of agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis are working in tandem to ensure that we come to grips with this monkey problem. It's something which we have spent in Nevis, and I go back now when I was in charge of the Nevis administration, where we teamed up with the Taiwanese to find a way of mitigating the monkey population. But it's still a very serious problem here, and farmers, both who are farming as a hobby and those who are doing it commercially, are all suffering as a result of the monkeys. Our hope is that maybe the pandemic could infect them and get rid of all of the monkeys, so that we could have an easier time in producing food and having food security for St. Kitts and Nevis, and the farmers could have a good living both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. Thank you very much.
course, the animal farmers that lost animals in 2018, 2019. Dealing with the monkey challenge, I think there are two approaches. One, you could wipe out the entire population. That, of course, we will not do. Or you could manage the population. That, of course, which we aim to do. It's not only an agricultural problem. And I say manage the population because we know that tourism benefits from the fact that we have monkeys in our federation. It is one of the attractions for persons who visit here, and even for some people to make an income. We also know that monkeys are being used to conduct experiments for certain diseases which affect humans, like Alzheimer's. They are the biomedical and other institutions here that continue to do research, valuable research, globally recognized research, which has attracted individuals from all parts of the world, including Germany and all that, who come here to be engaged in what's taking place in St. Kitts and learning from what we do here in St. Kitts in terms of research for some of the diseases that affect human beings, non-communicable and otherwise. So there is value. We also know that the Ross University embarked on a project, for example, a couple of years ago, where they began to research what has really happened to chikungunya and those other diseases. Where did it go? Wow, disappeared to where? Was it residing within humans and or monkeys in a particular form? And so an experiment was started, funded by the USA, I think it was over $300,000, to determine what has happened to these diseases that came here, the Zika, the chikungunya, and all that. So there's value in that aspect of our economic development, value in that. But absolutely when it comes to agriculture, we understand the pest, that these monkeys can be a serious pest. And we have embarked on programs before to assist in reducing the number of monkeys that are parading and doing damage to farmers, and even in our homes. We have engaged individuals who have been contracted, who do work. I will not name, but certainly last year one person continued to make it a very lucrative endeavor for himself. And as this year started, we have engaged some 13 or 14 others to get involved with trapping. In fact, it was only yesterday, someone sent me a message, I think it was yesterday, asking for monkeys to be trapped in the Greenlands area. And we have, the Ministry of Agriculture has turned its attention to how we could trap monkeys in at least in the human habitat areas, because of the apparently the challenges what they have with foods. So, yes, it's being worked on by the Ministry of Agriculture in particular, and we are in a current phase where we are actually using at least 14 or 15 persons engaged in the trapping of monkeys. Anyone else who wants to get involved can get information from the Ministry of Agriculture. And it's simple, because as much as $75 is paid for each monkey, which means it can be a lucrative venture for anyone. But I want to turn to one way of managing it. I said we have to go to managing rather than eliminating, because one of the challenges we face is that we have lost the sugar industry, and monkeys used to eat a lot of sugar cane. We've also lost a lot of the trees in our mountains from our hurricanes. And so it is time that we begin to, and I'm going to be one who's going to recommend a national tree planting day. If we have to go to the hills to plant fruit trees, we'll do that. Because the more of those fruit trees we can plant in the hillsides or near hillsides is an opportunity for them to be able to access food without having to come in human habitat areas. So that is part of the management program that has to be put in place. So it is something that will be vigorously pursued as we go through 2020. Yes, reduction in the population is one thing, So management is the philosophy of the government dealing with monkeys, and we're working vigorously this 2020 to help to manage that population so that we do not lose so much food from damage caused by these monkeys. Now, the caller also went on to ask about fishers and farmers getting more time. And if I remember what he said, fishers and farmers, I should advise you, caller, that the ministry has submitted proposals to the COVID task force for them to consider how to deal with fishers and farmers going forward. But again, let me reiterate that it is based on the science, it is based on the recommendations, and we're not working in a silo on our own. We are working in tandem with the overall program organized by the government through the operation of the COVID task force. But for example, we have put before the COVID task force that fishers who receive permits will be able to catch fish, and they were doing 6 to 6. We are proposing additional time, and when the time is right, I'm sure the COVID task force will definitely indicate that it will allow. For example, I know we asked for you in your chat. I happen to see and know that you're in your chat discussing a lot of these things. And we're recommending, for example, that the maximum size of the crew on a fishing vessel is as follows: 20-foot vessel, 3 fishers; 21 to 30-foot, 5 fishers; 31 to 60-foot, 7 fishers. So we're making recommendations, and while they're not yet in place, that depends on what the science tells us as we go forward. If we continue to hold the way we are holding, in fact, succeeding as we have been successful so far, I am confident that within time, the request being made by us will be put in place. So there's an active set of recommendations by the Department of the Fishing Department and by the Ministry of Agriculture. I could go into all of them, but now is not the time. I suppose I can give you a copy of this, and we can publish it for that matter if necessary. But we have put before the COVID task force a number of recommendations, and I am confident, given the way that they have conducted themselves so far, that when the time is right, they will implement the programs that we recommend. Because we understand that there are some fishermen who can't fish between 6 and 6 in the day. There are those who fish by line. Those who go 6 and 6 can pull pots. I understand that. And those who are doing line fishing and other thing, they have to fish at night because of certain pelagics will come out at night. I understand that. But for the time being, so those who are affected and cannot go fishing, for the time being, we understand, and certainly we'll move in that direction as soon as the time allows us. I think there was a question on dermatophilosis. Yes. Let me advise the caller who raised that question that the loss of animals in 2018-2019 was attributed to many things. It was not as a result of any deficiency in the government alone. Yes, there was a delay in the baiting coming to St. Kitts in January. Not caused by the government, but by the suppliers. However, dermatophilosis don't kill your animals just like that. It has to be diseased for a certain time. Notwithstanding, the government has decided to step up and do a compensation package for those persons who lost animals. So far, we put in place a committee. It's made up of the technical people in the ministry, and there are 3 farmers you selected when we had that meeting of the animals, and the farmers who were in animals on the first day we met. I think it was somewhere around about the 28th or so of probably March, 28th of March. 3 farmers were selected by you to join the technical team of the ministry, and they did. They have met twice now. Today, they had their final meeting. And I have before me a list of the farmers as they have recommended how they will be compensated, and a breakdown of the resources that is allotted to each farmer. And as I look at the list, I can see 3,000 and some farmers will be compensated based on the nature and amount of their loss. The fact that the list is completed, supported by members of the community of animal farmers, it means that we can move very quickly. Today is Tuesday. Well, certainly we hope we can get this worked out so that by as early as Monday, Monday is not a close down day, is it? No. As early as next week, you would not be asking me the same question. We look forward to be able to deliver. Again, it is the government being compassionate because, like I said, the loss of animals, you just don't die by dermatophilosis overnight. So we know that there are conditions. And those persons, they're persons with animals who had 100 who only lose 3. And those who had 10 all lost all. It goes back to how do you treat your animals. So, that said, the decision has been made today. The numbers are in I can see them here on a table. And I will ask tomorrow how soon we can get checks available to those who should be compensated. I hope I've answered all of your questions. I understand the other callers on the line. If that's so, can we have the questions from the caller?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Good night, Prime Minister. Good night, Mr. Eugene, and good night, Mr. Vance Amory. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, I'm just calling to say good night. And I just want to thank you for the good work you and the team has doing for the people, and keep on doing the best.
Thank you.
Keep your eye on the prize. Don't blink. The ball is in our court, Team Unity court. And when the time is right, you do what you have to do.
Yes.
Our national anthem and our flag, smiling. Every word in our national anthem now you and Team Unity government representing. With God in all our struggle, Saints and Nevis be. It's the best Nevis doing now, and I asking the people that in Nevis that whenever the time comes, go and put city and back. Team Unity is not perfect, but right now I am doing all your best. What more can Jesus do? The only thing you all can do is give back life. That's the only thing you can do. I am working off the clock. I am working 20 towards end to please people, and some of them still being on their throne. But you just have to leave them to God. So you know why? They have nothing to say, and they want to give you the credit for the good things you are doing. Prime
careful, because you see that you how you are managing this corona thing. Other country out there. You understand? Because I made to understand America is sending back a lot of deported back to Jamaica and other countries and those things. And opening up our port right now, and they put them on them flight to come back here, and they come run around because we have the control over them, and they go to where they want to go, and they go between friends and go between whosoever, and they affect people, and this corona could rise back up in the federation. Now we are right under control, and we want you to continue to do what you got to do, because let me tell you something. Things that just broke come all night. The churches, them is balling out saying they want to open again. I believe that the people, they're going to keep their good faith, the members of the church, going to keep their good faith, and as long as the honest and the true Christian, they're going to hold it tight and the offering to when the church open up. So nothing to worry about. You all is managing this thing, you all is coming every day educating us about this thing, and by right, the people them to listen. And the opposition, so-called opposition, they don't take on them negative things. Mr. Prime Minister, can the rap keep focus and continue to do what you got to do. You are doing a wonderful job, and the people of this federation, when the bell ring again, we're going to elect I back here. You all have a wonderful night. God bless you, get the name.
Thank you, caller. We say good night to the other caller. Good night. Hello, good night.
Yes, good night.
Yes. Your question?
Yeah, I have a question pertaining to this whole relief fund, right? I know it was partly answered, basically it wasn't answered. From what I understand, it seems as Labour Department is overwhelming funds. It's also a suggestion. Can't it be put in place where, there's many people out there qualified that don't have jobs, even if they hire them part-time just to start the situation, because persons out there have not gotten any money at all. Persons out there are running real low. They're tapping into the savings, they have children, they have parents that are working, they're tapping into their savings to help assist other persons and assist themselves, and they're running dry. You understand? So why can't something put in place where if they're overwhelmed, because the people that need work, right, and they're qualified, why not hire them temporarily? Second to my opinion also, if Social Security is paying out, why does a farm have to be filled out to send to Labour Department, to send that down to Social Security, to send back to Labour Department? Because that is what is being done to persons. You go on Social Security, they say go up Labour Department. You go up Labour Department, they say go back on Social Security. It's a back and forth. My thing is, if you qualify a person's pick based on contributions, right? Whether it's self-employed or work for somebody. My thing is Social Security have all information already. So therefore, it's not easier because everything is computerized. I assume that everybody have the Social Security have Tom Jones is paying this contribution weekly, monthly, however, right? So therefore, if Tom Jones is laid off and Tom Jones' boss sends a letter to Social Security to say Tom Jones has been laid off, Social Security will be able to see that the contributions have been stopped in fact based on the letter. So why not Social Security deal with that and just send to the money? My thing is, the only problem Social Security would have is that some persons might not have, Social Security might not have some persons' bank account information. Right? That's my point. Because it's overbearing. It's overbearing. People are frustrated. I'm being honest. People are frustrated and stuff like that. I know the Prime Minister is one man and he cannot be all over the place. And I jacket. I respect that. What I'm saying is that, and also Van Sandy who's in charge of Social Security, but it's just a suggestion to make things easier and to help people, because the lockdown and everything, everybody's hoping and so. I feel that saying it is, getting there. We're now 12 to 15. 12 out of 15 has recovered, which I'm very glad to hear. You understand? But this is adding fuel to the fire. You understand? Because example, when they ask a question, any man tell me, I just got to wait till when they call me.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. Caller, good night.
Good night.
Good night. I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Okay, so my question is for the Honorable Mr. Eugene Hamilton. You say that you want to go back in for a second term. My question is, what are some of the experiences that you can bring to the table that make you deserve that second term?
Thank you, caller. It looks like this is all that was our last caller. What else? All right. Minister Amri, you want to lead off with your responses?
Yes, and let me try to answer this question about the relief fund. I think the caller may have some...
Minister Amri?
Yes, am I on? Yes, the caller may have some concern, but I want to say that the process for dealing with matters relating to labor and employment has to be dealt with through the Department of Labor. I think it's not as difficult a situation as the caller is making out. Once information goes to the Department of Labor, who verifies, yes, that this person has been employed and sends information through to Social Security, once everything is in order, the payment is made. I think the delay in payment comes when people do not have bank accounts, and we've had situations where bank accounts, the numbers have been wrong, and the money has been returned to the Social Security. So we want to make sure that all of it is verified. I don't know that if people have to go into their savings, the commitment which Social Security is making is that these persons will receive, once they qualify, the $1,000 for April, for May, and for June. This is not anything, so they can plan their expenditure with that in mind. So the frustration is perhaps just a human feeling that everybody wants everything now for now. But we are saying, take a little time. It requires a little time, a little bit of patience, but you will get the payment. There will be payments made tomorrow. I don't know who the caller is. There will be payments made on Friday, on Thursday, on Friday, and payments will be made on the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, until everybody gets paid, and then the cycle starts again. So I just want the caller and others like him to not become impatient, but to know that the commitment has been made and that they can bank on Social Security making the payment once they are qualified. I think this is, our assurance which we are giving. There's another question which was asked by a lady who indicated that if someone works at Social Security and has another job and gets paid for the 4 days, provided that the payment they receive is more than $1,000 in the month, Social Security will not make the payment. This person clearly is employed fully, may not be getting as much as he or she would like, but the condition is if you get $1,000 or more, Social Security will not be making an additional payment to any person in that category. So the answer is no, there won't be any payment from Social Security. And I said, this is for persons who have lost their earnings, and for those persons who do not receive, whether it is from one job or 2 jobs, less than $1,000. That is what Social Security is prepared to contribute or make the income adjustment and assistance payment to those persons. I hope that answers the questions from the callers.
Borders is a real one. I want to say that the borders will not be opened anywhere soon. That was the message that came from our meeting today. The closure of the borders is critical to our ability to control any new surges with respect to COVID-19. I just want to read a small section from one of CARICOM's documents which formed the basis of our deliberations today. And it reminded us, as the CARICOM countries have all imported COVID-19 illnesses, that is, COVID was imported by persons who would have traveled yonder and who had come to our shores. At the same time, it is unlikely that human resources can be borrowed from within the CARICOM space. It goes on to say that Cuban specialist healthcare workers have been utilized. And here we know in St. Kitts and Nevis, the government negotiated for some 34 health professionals to come in to augment our human capacity response to COVID-19. And what is important is that the document goes on to say it is recommended that their assistance is further negotiated to prepare for the second and third waves, especially when intra and extra-regional travel commence. What they're saying here is that we are clearly not yet out of the woods, and there can be a second and third coming. And as a consequence of that, really, we are in no hurry. In fact, we are not at a stage where our borders can be open to regular traffic like before. There's a whole lot of measures and protocols which have been developed and continue to be developed in order for us to get there. In the near future, there will be no opening of borders at this time. The criteria that has been established by the WHO has to be met and has to be met by a number of countries, and we are working hard to be able to get there. The World Health Organization is recommending a phased approach, a phased transition, and that is what all member states within the CARICOM are working to get at. I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The question raised was, if I understood it, what are some of the things you bring to the, why do I put myself up for a second term? What are some of the things that you offer or bring to the table? Well, caller, I appreciate the question. In fact, I will begin by saying that Paulo Coelho has indicated, is noted for saying that the world is not changed by your opinion, but by your actions. And so while I do have opinions, you can judge from my own actions whether my performance is deserving of a second term. I can tell you, for example, that I have a long history of performance, and I will indicate that I brought that performance to the Team Unity administration. The fact that we were formed, we stormed, we normed, and we are now performing is because our collective experiences combined puts us at the cutting edge of providing responses that I've described earlier as nothing short of genius responses. I have such a long record, sometimes it's difficult to go back into all of them, but since in the 80s, I've been in management. I brought management to a company in St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla. And during that period, was able to help that company to grow by 300% in 9 years, from 1980 to 1989. I then joined a local company, National Caribbean Insurance, and again in management, I helped move that company from $5.7 million to 14.2 in 6 years. And I was organizations in St. Kitts, Nevis, and Anguilla. So my history of being able to manage and guide companies and to lead is well known. It is well known, I believe, that you know that every public servant today who has comprehensive medical insurance is as a result of what I had introduced to the government all the way back in 1992. It is why every public servant today can get his teeth treated, his eyes treated, and when there's any major medical, they can get services here and abroad. Any public servant, even the drain sweeper. And so that I bring that to the table. I have, through my work, developed persons to qualify for some of the most prestigious meetings around the world, described as $1 million round table. Just ask people like who work with me, like Marvin Herbert and Steve Saunders and Rohan Walters. Talking about Rohan Walters, I want to say good night to him and thank him for the work that he's done. This is a young man who came to St. Kitts selling pens. And I was able to work with him. I noticed he now has a bachelor's degree. He has a degree in law. Works for the government. But before that, he worked with me and was qualifying for $1 million round table so that the training helped them. So that I have a long history of that. But coming closer home to what we're doing today. In 2015, well, let me go back to 2010. In 2010, when I joined the parliament in 2010, the people of St. Kitts recognized the value. In fact, I've never heard so many people more interested in the Constitution since 2010, until 2010. And the questions which I used to put before the Prime Minister show the leadership qualities that I brought to the table. And then when we got in office in 2015, you know that we had, I won't go back into the debt we had because you already know about that. But so far, in my constituency, we built 113 homes. No one before me has ever built so many quality homes in his constituency in one term. Not knocking the Prime Minister, he had done some himself. I use the word special quality. And the next term I promise you we'll double that. Because I've already gone out to find investors to be able to invest in the communities and to grow the housing stock to help those persons who are maybe low and middle income, civil servants who may be having their mortgage to pay, having come back from study and can get into homes. We have that plan in place. So it will be double next term. Of course, Connery never had any clinic services. Today, Connery people can go to the Connery Community Center and see a doctor to get any kind of services and treatment for their illnesses, whether non-communicable or otherwise. That is, I mean, you could talk about all the physical development, but that is development when you're doing things that help the human, the individual who needs your service. Of course, you know that we have built homes where individuals have been given the homes with a key because of their status in life. The Prime Minister alluded to some in his constituency. We certainly have done some across the entire country. And we're looking to do one in St. Paul's right now. I think the Prime Minister, you remember you mentioned that one to me?
Yes.
Yes, we have to help. It's all around. We're not picking out from where you are or who you support. In fact, one in Keon, which we did the other day, the entire family before that never really supported me. In fact, it was so blatant that at the funeral of the grandmother, the daughter went and said how strong they were against the team unity. But it didn't matter. The young man was in need, and that's what we did. And then we're on the verge now of building the most similar to what happened in Tabernacle, brand new health center in St. Peter's. Because St. Peter's is one of the fastest growing areas in the community. And so when you see St. Peter's has its state-of-the-art health center, remember it is because of the Team Unity administration and the fact that the Prime Minister has appointed me as Minister of Health, and I am the representative of that constituency. Then, of course, we're on the verge of building the pavilion at the center in Connery, in Fairfield, because Connery is a footballing community. That fund has already been allocated, except for COVID. Both would have been going full blast right now. $1.8 million lighting facility to K-On, where our young people can come and play football at night and cricket at night, is a development worthy of a second term. Think again of today, where those children can walk on the verge we have created, do not have to walk on the main road to go from Cunningham Village to the schools. I mean, I can go on and list a whole lot of things, but I bring up leadership, I bring deliverance. I said earlier when I started, the world is not changed by your opinion. There are people coming with all kinds of opinions right now, but they have no track record of leadership. I am doing what I'm supposed to do. It's not done by, the world is not going to be changed by my opinion, but what I do and have done. And so I bring that to the table and offer myself for service for a second term. Thank you. We do not have any more callers, I see, Prime Minister. So perhaps we should consider wrapping up. Fine. So let us start with Mr. Amri. My brother and Senior Minister in Nevis, we do not have any callers at the moment, and we are already at 10:37. So we will start a wrap-up, and we will start with you.
Thank you very much, Minister Hamilton, and I think you, by your statement just now and by your performance, you deserve another term in government. I think you have done wonderful work, and as has the Prime Minister and all the members of the Team Unity government, and I want to commend all of my colleagues, starting with the Prime Minister, for the kind of leadership which has been given during this COVID-19 pandemic crisis. And I think, Prime Minister, I said your leadership and the way in which you have allowed those of us who are part of the team to do what we have to do and to make certain that it fits into the overall strategy of making sure that we put our people first. I think that has shown significant and tremendous leadership and should bode well for the future for Team Unity in government again after the next election. Now, in respect of what we are doing in Social Security and Labor, I think I want to just say to those persons who have lost earnings as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, that you will be taken care of by the Social Security grant. There is nothing that will stop that because it is already committed. And I just want to say to you, just have some patience and you will receive your payment, your disbursement. If you do not have a bank account to which a direct deposit could be made, then you will be notified that you could collect your payment at the Office of Social Security, both in St. Kitts and in Nevis. There are some numbers which you can call to provide yourself with the information you require. In St. Kitts, you can call 465-2535 or 667-2535. Those are the numbers for the Social Security offices. Or in Nevis, the Social Security office number 469-5245. And your concerns, your requests for information will be dealt with. And for those who want to call the Labor Department, it is 662-2075. I just want to make one last comment because this is something which has been asked. In the lockdown days when persons have to work at home, people are asking whether or not their hours would be changed. Now, the change in hours will depend on the conditions which are granted. Now, you will not lose those times as holidays or vacation time. But in terms of your receiving pay, if you're not out at work or if you're working at home, that will depend on the person, your employer. They will give you a schedule, they will give you the work to be done, and so on, and no doubt will pay you for that work done once it is done satisfactorily. So the adjustment will have to be made, and that adjustment is one which is made across the board. There are persons who work for the government who are not essential workers who have to work at home. We have persons who are working in the Department of Labor who are seeking to complete the application forms, some of whom are doing that work at home, or they come in and do the work on shortened hours. So I want to appeal to all workers in St. Kitts and Nevis to recognize that we are in a very difficult time, and that all of us have to make some adjustment to the way we do business. Employers have to make adjustment, employees have to make adjustments. And in making that adjustment, it will just ensure that we get through this pandemic together, and we do so ready to start when the time is right to open up the economy, open up the borders, so that we can approach what we do with new attitudes to do more, attitudes which will help us to be more efficient and more professional in what we do, to make the country more prosperous. That is what I want to leave with us as we try through Social Security now to make certain that those who need the assistance get the assistance in as timely a manner as possible. And Social Security and the Department of Labor are working together to ensure we do this as expeditiously as possible. Thank you, and God bless us all. God keep us safe and keep us healthy. Thank you very much.
To go last this evening, and so I will do a little wrap up. I will just indicate to all those who are listening tonight, first of all, thank you for participating, thank you for listening. I hope you learned a lot. Certainly your questions provoked certain thoughts in my mind. I will indicate to you as I close this program, as I begin to give my wind-up, that we at Agriculture began by thinking up two scenarios. A scenario where food inputs continue, but with certain delays. Then we thought of another situation where there will be no food at all. Of course, the second was not an option, because after FAO decided that there was sufficient food to feed all the people, we just stuck with option one. We focused on some main crops like sweet potatoes, breadfruit, and so on. We started thinking, how can we make sure that we have things like cassava, yams, and androids harvested? And of course, we thought of producing pumpkins, squash, carrots, lettuce, broccoli, and eggplants. And for your citrus and otherwise, guava, gooseberry, and tamarind. Then we looked at what would be the legumes from where we get our supply, which would have been from things like peanuts and black-eyed peas, pigeon peas, and so on. Those usually take about 6 months duration to produce. And then we thought of what animal protein we should have available. And we know we have cattle, of course, and pigs, sheep, goats, fish, and eggs. And we started working to help to produce on more land and more on the farms, and even to provide homes where necessary with some of the proteins, for example, rabbits. All of the planning went into it, including some serious departments of CADI, AICA, and the Republic of China and Taiwan. We had all of the private sector partners involved to plan for this. It is why I feel comfortable that we will produce enough, and we have asked the private sector to consider purchasing as much food as possible locally, so that the local farmers can not only dispose of what they produce, but that the people in St. Kitts will consume more local produce rather than to continue to look at. I went to the supermarket one day and I saw okra from, I think it was Chile, and it shocked me because I know in your backyard you could plant an okra tree. There's no reason to bring okra here from Chile, but we have to do our backyard gardening. Don't just depend on the farmers to produce the okra for you. Do some work in your own backyards so that you don't have to buy those things from Chile. But we got the farmers, some 271 of them, to agree to be part of this engagement of producing more. And as a result of their work, we're able to put in place 41 farmers doing 64.25 acres of sweet potato, 32 22 farmers doing something like 38.5 in peanuts. Squash, 41 farmers doing 29.5 acres. Cabbage, 9 farmers doing 9.25 acres. Pumpkin, 40 farmers doing 49 acres. Carrots, 22 farmers doing 20.25 acres. More, I'm saying more because they're usually planting. Watermelon, 49 farmers deciding to do some 46.50 acres of watermelon, and 37 farmers doing some 16 acres more of sweet pepper. Now, if you know how these are produced, it will produce a significant, we have concluded that the production should be about 404 metric tons of food additional, which will be available. And it has begun, the work has begun. I think the Prime Minister mentioned that he had already engaged some 15 acres in his constituency down in Lodge or somewhere there. And those will be producing a few things, engaging some of the young people to do some work. So squash, cabbage, pumpkins, carrots, melons, sweet peppers will be producing in huge quantities. And I'm indicating to farmers at the first instance that where possible, the Department of Agriculture will use its chills to help you to secure whatever you produce so that they do not perish, they do not go to waste. We certainly will store what we can and work with the supermarkets to help to market some of the produce that you produce. And as indicated today in that meeting with the Prime Minister, with the CARICOM heads, we have been working towards how we can market goods across the region and, of course, benefit from what they produce in the region as well. That, of course, is ongoing. In fact, as we speak, I already have a regional submission which all of the cabinets are asked to consider, and that will be considered by us shortly. It's all working towards facilitating the trading, the movement of goods across our islands. So we look forward to that. We can go into a whole history of the areas and the cropping that will be done. But I believe the pudding is in the eating. I believe that by going to the agricultural department, whether you are a backyard farmer or you are a regular farmer, more information could be provided to you as to how you can be partners with us in producing food over the next 3, 6, maybe 9 months, or as long as necessary if the going gets any worse. So thank you for listening to me. I hope you've had a productive, an important listening evening, learned a lot. I've had a productive evening this evening, and I look forward to engaging with you day by day as we continue to build this country we call St. Kitts and Nevis. We have been put here. We are charged with the responsibility to improve the quality of life of our citizens. And we are doing that. Someone mentioned earlier, we're not perfect, but we certainly are doing far better than any other government in recent history. In 5 years, we've done more than some have done in 20. And so we look forward to the opportunity to do another 5 years, when certainly what we will do in 10 years will be what they would have done in almost 40. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and have a good night.
Thank you, Minister Hamilton. And I want to wrap up this another edition of Leadership Matters, leadership working for and on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want equally to say a hearty thank you to all workers and every productive citizen and resident of St. Kitts and Nevis who has helped us through their industry, through their work, through their appropriate behaviors over the last 5 years to make St. Kitts and Nevis a real model of a well-managed state. In difficult times, we have shown leadership. And of course, in the good times, the leadership has been evident. So I said to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, there's only one clear choice for the future, and it is with the Team Unity government. I want to thank all my cabinet colleagues for the outstanding work that we have been able to do over the last 5 years. We came together as persons who loved their country and who wanted to see it advance. We came together notwithstanding the differences in our party affiliation. Indeed, we subordinated party for the benefit of the country. And over the last 5 years, the people have seen a St. Kitts and Nevis of which they can be proud. A St. Kitts and Nevis that has grown year after year in the last 5 years. A St. Kitts and Nevis that has been the most resourceful, the most prudent in terms of its reserve position and fiscal management. A St. Kitts and Nevis which in the face of a global pandemic has been able to hold its own and to respond up to this point using resources that has been garnered from the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. As we look to the future of a better and safer place, I want to encourage all our people to put their hands to the deck. Put their hands to the deck. Continue to be a good citizen and a good resident and to contribute to the task of nation building. As we look to the future, there's a special place and a bigger space for our farmers and fishers, and the $10 million that we have committed on our stimulus package should help our farmers to do a better job at ensuring food security in St. Kitts and Nevis. To the new ones who are going to be entering the farming, we are providing them with land, free of cost. We are providing them with harrow services, free of cost. We are providing them with seeds and seedlings to get their crops started. All this at no cost. This is a unique opportunity that is being provided to the farming community. And even as we do so, we are catering to the livestock farmers, and we are providing them with financial support to give them a further boost to contribute to food security. We look again to redesigning and redeveloping Bayford as a critical part of livestock development in our country. And as we are doing now, working with all the partners, CARDI and other institutions to provide even greater support to the farming community. The future for farming will be better under a team unity government, and we will continue to invest there. We look forward to a new dynamic participation in a tourism project where St. Kitts and Nevis will be among the first to put forward and to market a new brand of tourism, making better use of all of our assets within the country and doing it so in a context in which health would be a predominant consideration for those who would want to travel. Our health sector on the team unity has been strengthened, and as we sit tonight, it is stronger and better than it ever was. Whereas before, we had limits on ventilators, nebulizers, and other equipment, today we are fully resourced and fully capable of facing the challenges. I want to thank all those who are involved in the healthcare, provision of services, even those working in the private sector, the facilities for the elderly, the pharmacies. Thank you for your contribution to nation building. I want, of course, to thank every other person who has in some way made a contribution to the good state in which St. Kitts and Nevis has found itself. To all those who have complimented the government, continue to pray for their country, I say thank you. To my cabinet colleagues, thank you for your support. It has been a challenging and difficult time, but working together, we have done much of which we can be proud. We can take pride in the fact that many had doubted whether this new approach to governance coming across the partisan political line could ever survive. To our credit, we have survived for a full term, and we are looking positively to continue to expand the governance agenda, the economic freedoms in our country during our next term. I commend the Honorable Jean Hamilton for his service to the country, both as a private citizen, but most importantly, as the elected representative for the people of St. Christopher 8. He has done a wonderful job. He has provided me with strong support. I commend him to the people of number 8. A vote for the Honorable Jane Hamilton is a vote to return Dr. Timothy Harris as Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to commend the candidacy of all our colleagues and team unity, those who are in government and those who are not yet there, like our Ambassador John L. Powell, who will join the seats of government after the next election, and of course our dear Senator Akila Byron Nisbet, who will be a most wonderful and productive representative for the people of West Barstow. We have a country to build and a nation to mold. We can't stop now, and we cannot go back to the past that we have rejected. Nation building calls for serious leadership, and we have been able to see that serious leadership on display. In contrast, yesterday, we see those who are the same old labor, same old leadership, same old ways of risk and danger. A word to the wise is enough. May God bless our country, and may God bless our people. Thank you all. Good night.
You're in tune to 1FM 98.9. The time approximately 3 minutes moving up to the 11 o'clock hour. And Leadership Matters has just concluded.